Lemon, lime, and a drop of cherry make a simple Shirley. But what happens when Tito's handmade vodka reveals this sweet sipper's dirty secret? Stir up a Tito's Dirty Sherlock and crack the case with Tito's at titosvodka.com. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
For exclusive podcasts and more, sign up at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
This week's Law & Order Marathon winner is Christina Reese from Camp Kisner, Okinawa, Japan. Christina will get a marathon decal showing she watched 26.2 hours of her favorite crime show. To be next week's winner, sign up at lawandorderpodcast.com.
I'm Kevin Flynn with Rebecca Lavoie and Samantha Thompson, and these are their stories.
You think you know who did it, but you don't know who did it. Law and order, law and order, law and order. It's no ordinary police procedural, baby. It's the FNOG of police procedurals, baby. Law and order, law and order, law and order, law and order. These are their stories, these are their stories.
Welcome to These Are Their Stories, the podcast about network TV's most enduring crime franchise and the real-life cases that inspired their shows. I'm Kevin Flynn. Each podcast will break down an episode from either Criminal Intent, SVU, or Original Recipe. And today we're looking at Law & Order Season 14, Episode 3, Patient Zero.
How do you plead?
My client pleads not guilty.
Your Honor, the people seek remand. Dr. Blanchard intentionally infected his former lover with the SARS virus.
Allegedly.
She went on to infect 11 other people.
Joining me to do just that is true crime author and the host of Crime Writers On and the Undisclosed Addendum podcasts, Rebecca Lavoie. Hello, Rebecca.
You always come home to me, right, Kevin? Always.
Always come home to you. And rounding out our panel is our special guest from the spooky adventures of Alec and Sam. It's Samantha Thompson. Hi, Samantha.
Hey.
So you work in law enforcement.
I do.
You enjoy scary stories.
Love scary stories.
What's the ideal Law and Order crossover ghost story?
Oh my gosh. You know, it would be really interesting to see a Law and Order like Ghost Adventures crossover where Zach Baggins just goes in there to see some haunted location and then Briscoe would drop a one-liner. It would have been great.
Zach Baggins, that guy, he's the Payne Lindsay of reality TV. He is incredible.
Or it could be an SVU and Amanda says to the ghost, "It's not your fault."
Totally.
Can you imagine Ice-T with the ghost to be like, nah.
Oh, hell no.
No, but he would know where it was from immediately, though.
That's
Exactly.
right, he would.
Based on whatever
He would.
iconography it had on its ghost shirt.
There was a great scene, and we talked about it in a past episode, where Munch and Finn were chasing a murder suspect on Coney Island, and the suspect got on the haunted house ride.
Oh, yeah.
And to chase them, they also got on the haunted house ride to ride the little cart that is traveling exactly the same speed as the guy. And then all these spooky things come out, and I don't know, that was the scariest thing we've seen.
That's right.
Yeah, seriously.
Hey, Sam, of all the franchises, which two cops are your favorite detective team?
Favorite Law and Order detective team.
See, I had to think about this one long and hard, but I'm a kind of a traditionalist. It's a Briscoe Logan.
Nice.
Yes.
It's a good choice.
Absolutely a great choice.
Respectable. I mean, it's no Briscoe and Green, but it's all right.
That's true.
I wonder
That's
what
true.
Briscoe's ghost would be like.
Snarky.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
My wife always said this would happen. And who's your favorite prosecutorial team?
Favorite Law and Order district attorney prosecutorial team.
McCoy and Carmichael.
Oh, right.
Love them. They're my favorite too.
Oh,
There's
fantastic.
a nice sass
I love her.
connection.
I love her.
I think Angie Harmon's having a moment on our podcast because it seems every week
I mean, she's Angie Harmon. She deserves the moment.
Right.
She deserves it.
she's getting that Rizal and Ole's.
Rizzoli and Isles.
Rizzoli and Isles bump. God damn it.
You never watched a minute of that show.
Well, they had plenty of promos. Now let's look at the first half of this episode, Law & Order, Season 14, Episode 3, Patient Zero. Well, the advantage to power walking in Manhattan is you can be as catty as you want about your friends and get great views of carjackings.
Took one to the chest. Emmy says it was up close and personal. Drove up the block like a bat out of HE double hockey sticks.
What precinct are you from? Sesame Street?
She still got her watch and her wedding ring.
We got a couple of witnesses over there say it looked like a carjacking.
The victim in this case is Anna Hopkins. They chase down some guys who chop up cars and find Anna's Escalade. That leads them to Lamont Tyler. And even his lawyer says, you're screwed, buddy. Lamont confesses to the killing, and so ends another 9-minute episode of Law and Order. But wait! In the back of Anna's car was a container filled with the SARS virus. She worked at a lab doing research on the virus. Her snotty boss, Dr. Charles Blanchard, says they just got samples from China. And what's this? Anna was born in Saudi Arabia. What are you implying, detective?
We know.
Well, that's when a SARS outbreak happens. With 11 people in the hospital, they identify their patient zero as Janine Wilson, a journalist who just returned from the SARS-ridden cesspool of Toronto. But the Canadian strain comes from Singapore, and this strain came from Hong Kong. Janine admits she had just ended her affair with lab director Charles Blanchard, and in addition to giving her the hot beef injection, he was also giving her a B12 injection.
Nice.
Laced with SARS.
I heard what you did there.
You saw the injection thing?
Ew.
Well, guys, we've seen SVU detectives. This is the first time we see an SUV detective.
Very funny.
We looking for a young black runner who jacked a 2002 blue Escalade this morning.
That wouldn't be my guys.
What, you guys don't steal American?
You said he's a black runner? Jerome Avenue, strictly Italian.
Oh, and all this time I thought the 14th Amendment outlawed separate but equal car theft rings.
Not in the Bronx, it don't.
Very funny.
In the criminal justice system, automotive offenses are considered especially heinous.
Especially, yes.
Yes, he's apparently the guy known around town as the chop shop
Oh, is that
wizard.
Kachiko guy or the guy that everybody's amazed that Van Buren knows?
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? She reads the weeklies.
He's the auto theft Profaci.
Oh, Profaci. I was excited to learn that there's some sort of like magazine apparently about cops that gets distributed to cops.
Yeah, is this true, Sam?
Well, there are a few cop magazines. Yeah, indeed.
I think it was a cover story on this dude. I go after Escalades.
It's a possibility. I mean, in that area for sure.
Well, Lamont is really sticking to his story here.
Oh, hell no, not me. I was at a bar.
A bar. Just for chuckles, which one?
How am I supposed to remember that? Even if he could remember Lenny, he'd have to explain away his fingerprints on the victim's vehicle. It must be a mistake.
Oh, this is good, the way you're working with us. See, now what about that 38 we found at your crib? Was that a mistake, too?
Now you got it.
So someone remind me when he's calling Briscoe B.
You better start thinking about folding.
That's on you, B.
What is he actually calling him?
I don't know.
That's not like gangster. That's G, right?
I think so. At first I thought, well, maybe he does know his last name. I mean, you know.
You saw it on his badge.
Right? He's like, oh, okay, that's what I call him. That's great.
And then Green comes in and is like, hey, G, hey, B.
Yeah. I don't
Van Buren,
have...
hey, V.
Yeah, I wish I had more notes about Green in this episode. I only have one. Would you like to read it?
Green is gorgeous. God damn it, Rebecca.
It's okay. My note was Green gets a lot of phone calls in this episode.
Hey, Tina, I'm going to have to call you back, okay?
Yes, a lot of 6-second phone calls that he then has to spend 15 seconds expositing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so even the guy's attorney is like, man, you're fucked.
I gotta tell you, Lamont, I don't see a way out of this.
I don't see a way out of this.
You're done.
That lineup did go swimmingly, I have to say.
So my note that I have on that lineup, though, is he's the only one that has his hands in front of him. Nothing like standing out in a crowd.
Blend, man. You're supposed to blend.
I really want to talk about the deli guy and the moms and the whole cold open. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, sure.
It was a masterclass in some of the worst acting I've ever seen on this show.
I have to get back to the deli. We're expecting a meat delivery.
Meat? A woman's just been shot.
Hey, I got the license number and I called 911. What'd you do?
Take it easy, pal. This is only going to take a minute.
Oh, really?
I'm not alone thinking that deli guy, like, he had to have been somebody's, like, brother or cousin, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, he could not have actually auditioned for this role.
He was actually cutting meat. They said, oh, You'd be perfect. What are you doing Thursday?
Well, and the fact that let's speed walk while we're talking about Chanel sweaters, and the fact that Bruce's bank account is stronger than pride and love.
Chanel, who's she kidding with those hips? The point is, she's getting back with Bruce. No way, after that whole thing? Well, forget that. If John forgot my 10th anniversary, I would be out of there before you could say Raoul Felder. I mean, where's your sense of pride?
It tells you all you need to know.
Those bitchy hot moms.
Yeah.
You love them. And what's up with the like weird aside with the super earnest cop who says HE double hockey sticks, prompting Briscoe to say, what precinct did you come from? Sesame Street?
Such a classic one-liner.
He must have heard our last podcast and we decided to bleep all the swears. So they suddenly, talk to this guy and that guy, and they finally get to this Cadillac Escalade.
So the interesting thing that I loved about this fact is that literally they're like, hey, do you hear a lady screaming? Yeah, that would not hold up in court, I'm just saying.
You guys got a warrant?
Ed, you hear that?
Yeah, I think I do. Hear what?
The sound of a woman calling for help.
Ah, this sucks.
Female in distress. That's exigent circumstances.
And of course, they get to the back. The guy pops it open. He goes, we've been trying to unload this car for a while, but nobody wants to touch this box, which Briscoe immediately touches without gloves on.
That brings up a good point. That defense attorney kept saying, I don't see a way out of this. I said, I do. Throw it out for an illegal search.
Excellent point.
All right, let's take a look at our Hey, It's That Guy.
Hey, it's that guy.
Do you know the actor playing Dr. Blanchard? I'm going to go to Rebecca first on this one.
Is it Ralph Nader?
No. Sam, any guess?
No, but he definitely is a hey, it's that guy. You've seen him as that British bad guy in almost everything. It's great.
Back when I was at Stanford, Harvard offered me twice the salary for half the workload. I'd have been on the first plane east. I was, only not to Cambridge. Hudson doubled Harvard's offer. Why do you suppose that is? I don't know, you're good.
That's Daniel Garrol, or Garrel, or Jarol.
Yeah, clearly you know who he
I know.
is. You totally looked that up on Wikipedia. Who are you kidding?
Yeah, but no, you've seen him run on the beach a million times in slow motion.
Oh, was he in Chariots of Fire?
Chariots of Fire,
really?
Yes.
Was he one of the Americans or one of the Brits?
No, it was one of the Brits, Rebecca. He played Henry Stollard. This is a true story. He was a classmate. This actor was a classmate of Prince Charles in the drama class at his school in Scotland.
Wow, the school that Philip sent him to that he hated that we saw in The Crown?
No, I don't know. Samantha, have you been watching The Crown?
Oh, I'm totally caught up.
Okay, so I think it's the one sort of in the later years. Oh, the school is Gordonston? Does that make sense to anyone?
I don't know. Remember how cold and dark it was and everybody made fun of poor Charles?
Yes, but Prince Charles seemed to really like being in the theater.
Totally liked being in the theater. I wish that he maybe had become an actor. That would have been interesting. A lot of wooden performance.
Imagine Prince Charles running on the beach in the Chariots of Fire.
You know what's funny about, this is like an aside, but I remember...
Do you think Prince Charles can run?
Of course.
What would he ever have to run to?
They play polo.
He's the prince.
Do you know how hard that is?
Oh.
They can literally do anything.
But he's still not running. He's on a horse.
Right, riding
the
a horse
is running.
Riding a horse is hard.
Oh, Jesus.
It's a lot of exercise. So I just have a question about Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
Have you seen it recently, or did you only see it when you were a little kid? And do you remember it as the most boring movie ever made?
The latter.
It's actually quite good. I recommend it. I watched it. It was on TV a few weeks ago. I just a total aside. And I turned it on. I was like, oh, this one. I remember this being the most boring movie ever. And then I was like, or maybe I saw it when I was 6.
I want to point out hey, it's that girl.
Okay.
Again, we see Christine Haj.
Yes.
She was on a previous episode as a kidnapped victim.
The fact is, he never goes home with anyone but me. This whole story about some sordid affair is nonsense.
As you remember, she was Elaine. In this episode, Mrs. Blanchard, she was best known for head of the class, voted most huggable at Hollywood High, an honor which has not held up well. And actually, good news, I don't know if I mentioned this last time. She had been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer.
In real life?
In real life. They gave her 2 years to live, and she beat it.
Good for her.
So I heard that she's doing well. That's it's always good to hear. But I want to ask you about Nora, the gossipy lab tech. Do you recognize her, anybody?
Oh, gosh. She did look familiar.
The man may not always be right, but he is never wrong, if you know what I mean.
He's the feudal lord, and we're all his serfs plowing his fields.
That's Finnerty Steeves. This is the first of 3 Law and Order appearances for her. She is playing Beth on Orange is the New Black.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So you remember how there was a time there where like everybody from The Sopranos was getting side work?
Yes.
On Law and Order. I believe that everybody who is now on Orange is the New Black has been getting some previous work on Law and Order or SVU.
I totally wouldn't doubt it.
I think Orange is the New Black is the new black. So you brought him up before, so we may as well talk about him.
Who's that?
The deli manager. He was the
I was going to say Ralph Nader.
Because there was a Ralph Nader reference in this episode.
There was.
Totally dated this episode, too.
You seen a blue Escalade?
Who's asking?
Ralph Nader.
Yeah? I didn't vote for you.
Oh, right. There was that election.
He was the Jill Stein of my childhood.
So our deli manager, anybody recognize him from anything?
Oh, God, no.
Orange is the New Black.
Law and Order SVU?
That's Teddy Kaluka?
2 years ago, guy comes into my shop, points a gun. Give him whatever he wants. Nothing's worth your life.
So you've seen Teddy. He's got recurring roles now on The Blacklist and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
So are we to assume he got better?
5 Law and Order appearances. He really has that face.
Yes.
Where even if maybe you don't recognize him, but he looks like he's cut right from Hell's Kitchen and placed in the Law and Order episode.
I was going to say he looks like he's cut a lot of ham for ham and cheese sandwiches.
Okay, so we don't have to do a lot of exposition to build suspicion that this character is a terrorist in the year 2003.
Oh my God.
By suspicious, you mean Arab. Her father is Saudi, so she must be a terrorist.
Your wife was driving around the city with an unauthorized vial of SARS, Mr. Hopkins. Times being what they are, we have to wonder why.
Look, Mr. Hopkins, if you know anything about this, you need to tell us now.
All right, let me check her Palm Pilot. Because I think she's got Jose's home phone number. Hey, stop it!
God, well, she has a Palm Pilot. That's hella suspicious.
Remember, we were about to go to war with Iraq because we thought they had something to do with 9/11. So, I think you just have to drop. Even today, I think if you just sort of drop, they're from a certain part of the world, you immediately get to the, suspicion of this.
It's way more suspicious that she works at Hudson. Let's be real.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding.
Well, we do have to suspect that doctor of something because, first of all, every doctor in this show is a major dick.
It's very true.
And we have to suspect him of, criminal actions because he does work at Hudson.
Yes.
We are Hudson, where the bad guys go to school.
Is there anything more terrifying than the prospect of a scary lab working on biological weapons at Hudson University? Could you imagine what could possibly go wrong there?
They just need a rapist and
exactly
kidnapping.
Exactly.
And that's
somebody murdering for tenure.
That's just like a Thursday at Hudson University.
It really is.
So they go to the isolation unit and
have to yell through glass.
What is this about?
Anna Hopkins?
She was killed in a carjacking.
Charles had something to do with it?
No, but the thing is, Mrs. Hopkins had a vial of the coronavirus in the back of her car.
That bastard. What in the world was he thinking?
It's an amazing piece of high-tech isolation. Literally, you don't have to wear a mask or gloves or anything. All you have to do is walk up to this window and scream at the person on the other side.
Well, I think it was actually a screen window. It wasn't actually made of glass. It made it easier.
I have another question about Janine because this whole all these throwaway lines in the episode about the doctor running around behind his wife's back with much younger women. I'm like, his wife was pretty freaking young. What are we talking about? She wasn't exactly a spinster.
Younger than him.
She was cold, but she wasn't exactly old.
Yeah. The biohazard thing. At one point we see Briscoe and Green at the hospital, and Briscoe turns to the doctor and is like,
"Well, still, shouldn't we be wearing masks or something?"
I'm like, shouldn't some more people be on this case other than the 2 carjacking cops?
Says the guy who touched the box without gloves.
Yeah. Touching everything at the hospital.
St. Mark's, you mean?
He was patient 0.
He was probably patient 0, yeah.
Lemon, lime, and a drop of cherry make a simple Shirley. But what happens when Tito's handmade vodka reveals this sweet sipper's dirty secret? Stir up a Tito's Dirty Sherlock and crack the case with Tito's at Tito'sVodka.com. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
All right, now let's take a look at the second half of this episode. The defense is going to argue it wasn't Dr. Blanchard who spread the SARS virus. It had to be Anna, because she was an Arab or something like that.
Every day, we're told to be wary of biochemical attacks by Arab terrorists. 12 people were infected with a virus, the source of which was a vial found in the trunk of a car owned by a woman born in Saudi Arabia.
Mrs. Hopkins had no connection with any terrorist group. She didn't socialize with Arabs or even worship in a mosque. Point is, there is no evidence whatsoever indicating this was politically motivated. Allowing the defense to even suggest as much will do nothing but inflame and mislead the jury.
Snuffleupagus lesbian Serena Sutherland discusses the case with Blanchard's wife, Elaine. She's standing by her man, saying they were home together the night he allegedly gave Janine the B12 injection and says, don't believe those slutty ladies who get turned on by intelligence. But everyone at the lab knew about his 4-year-long affair with Janine and that he is the father of her son, who is still in the hospital. Still, Mrs. Blanchard is unmoved even after the sick boy dies from SARS. Now on trial for second-degree murder, Blanchard admits cheating but not to infecting Janine. On cross-examination, McCoy works up Mrs. Blanchard's hidden rage over her husband's affairs. She testifies, no, he wasn't with her the night of the injection. Then on a brutal redirect, she admits to the defense she lied about that because she was saying, oh, fuck. What?
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. In the conference room of truth, she says her double perjury was strategic. It's enough to confuse the jury, who find Blanchard not guilty, and the cold-blooded couple leave the court hand in hand.
What exactly was Blanchard on trial for?
Second-degree murder.
For who? Tanner?
For the kid.
It was very confusing. I was like, we had a victim at the beginning who's completely forgotten about. No one ever discusses again. The poor husband is like, wait, what? Like, we're not going to do anything about the fact that my wife was, I don't know, murdered?
They got a confession.
Yes, I know. But then they're still invoking her alleged terrorism, which is clearly not true in this trial. For what? I'm like, is he on trial for terrorism? It was I found it very confusing. All the legal stuff in this part of this episode was bananas confusing.
Sam understood the whole thing.
Actually, my confusion came in the fact, why did we call this patient zero? Because it seemed to have so little to do with that.
Well, Rebecca, I know that you want to make a point about the term patient zero, right?
Do I?
Well,
I do.
Taylor Quimby, who is the voice of our podcast theme song, completed a podcast called Patient Zero. It's around the medical mysteries of Lyme disease. And Rebecca, you were very impressed about where this term patient zero comes from.
Yeah, patient zero is actually came about at the dawn of the AIDS epidemic. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a problematic term because there was this sort of like focus on gay men, and patient zero ultimately like sort of had some like weird intersections with homophobia and all that stuff. But the thing that's really interesting is it wasn't actually patient zero. It was patient O.
The letter O.
Yes.
It was sort of outside the vector zone or something like that.
Exactly. So it was patient O.
But patient zero sounds way more badass.
And it's a way better name for a podcast or an episode than, Doctor from Hudson.
Well, I have a different name for him, actually. I called him Smuggy McSmuggerton.
Oh, yeah.
I called him Thurston Howell III because that was how he dressed.
So, District Attorney and rejected hee-haw character Arthur Branch says Serena ought to interview Blanchard's wife because...
I'm thinking this might be better handled woman to woman.
And then later McCoy says the same thing to her.
Right.
Arthur was right. This sort of thing's better handled woman to woman.
So, hey, progress?
Oh, I was seething. I was kind of like, I'm kind of triggered at this very moment that it has to be women to women. Why? You can go talk to her. It's fine.
Maybe Branch is a little afraid of women.
They seem, I have to say, when McCoy later says he doesn't want to go talk to her, he seems afraid. He seems either lazy or afraid.
Well, Serena goes to see Mrs. Blanchard and spills the tea on her husband's affairs right as the servant is pouring tea.
Right.
I know this is difficult, Mrs. Blanchard, but where does someone like Janine Wilson fit into the picture?
Believe me, I know from experience. A high IQ is an aphrodisiac. I know the mere presence his effect has on women.
That woman did not flinch. That servant. She either has ice in her veins or she doesn't speak English.
She has her headphones in. She wasn't paying attention.
She's listening to an audiobook.
Yeah, she's pouring the tea and she's like, oh, this shit again?
I have a question about their conversations with people who work at the hospital, like lab techie type people. So we hear from one who's like, nobody would get with Dr. Blanchard. That guy's a dick.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, yeah, but everyone knew he was sleeping with that other person. Like, which is it? Is he a dick that no one will sleep with? Or is he a hound that everybody sleeps with?
8 million people in the city. I mean, you gotta eventually come down to it, right?
So the answer to that question is yes.
So I've been thinking about the casting of Christine Hage. She is 35 in this episode. He's 20 years older than her. But this character, she doesn't come off necessarily like a gold digger. I think it's surprising that she sticks with him, and I think it is a clever writer's choice as opposed to, having Mrs. Howell there to have Ginger instead.
Yeah, and I think that we got some, alluding to this foreshadowing at the beginning of the episode, right? With the two Upper East Side moms, bitching about how their friend is going to stick with her husband even though he's a cheater.
Oh, my God.
You think that was foreshadowing?
I gotta say, some real writers in the room that day.
Actually, I think I loved the fact that she just kind of could play that cold, blank face sort of, yeah, okay, whatever. It's like, is she in it for the money? I don't think she's a gold digger, but at the same time, you're like, I actually have a note at the end of this episode, which was what is my theme of this episode? It was who was smarter, him or her?
I actually thought she did it, for the entire episode. I did. Every time she come on screen, I'd be like, she did it. She put the SARS in the B12 shot because she knew her husband was giving his girlfriend these B12 shots. She's the one who did it. I was certain, because I haven't seen this episode either ever or in a long time. I was certain. I was like, she did it.
That is the formula.
I was shocked that I was wrong. I'll be real.
And how many other women was he giving this B12 shot to?
What a weird sign of affection.
Apparently, he'd been giving a lot of women shots.
But isn't that a weird sign of affection? Hey, hun, I'm going to come over and stick a needle into your arm.
You're a little run down. Let me help you out.
I'm going to feel so much better.
I know that you guys especially, which I love that you guys really embrace the Briscoe one-liners, but Arthur Branch had some turds of wisdom in this show. So I kind of made some notes of that, and I literally put Arthur Branch's turd of wisdom, and it was...
In the grand scheme of things, a wife's testimony doesn't amount to a hill of grits. It's not like terrorists wear an ID card around their necks. On the other hand, we could be putting the cart before the mule.
The cart before the mule.
Yeah, I think they just want to take regular cliches and make them corn pone for some reason.
More corn pone.
Yeah, let's change this up. Hill of beans? No. What else? What do they have? Beans? They don't have beans.
It has to be more Arthur Branchian. What would that be?
Grits. Perfect. Because he definitely looks like a guy who has grits for breakfast. We get a quick flash of McCoy's life. Remember, when he came on board 10 years earlier, it was implied that McCoy is a ladies' man. And Serena asks about his last marriage.
Different people expect different things from marriage.
And I guess you're an expert on that?
Before you go any further, she left me because I spent too many nights like this.
So she's got to be thinking, yeah, not worried about sleeping with you. Not even one bit.
You know why?
Why?
Because she's a lesbian.
Is this because I'm a lesbian?
Is she?
Yeah. It wasn't that she was bisexual. She is a lesbian. Done.
That's right.
Rebecca, you thought there was actually confirmation in this episode.
I did?
Yeah.
I wish my dog was as loyal as Elaine Blanchard.
She mentioned having a dog. You're like, yep, she's a lesbian.
No, that was just I was thinking that's the writers giving us a clue. I wasn't saying that.
The writers
also.
That was a last-minute addition as she's walking out the door for the last time.
The writers also in this episode, I mean, these are the writers, right? They also interchange the word Arab with Muslim, which is not accurate. No, millions of Arabs are not Muslim. Millions of Muslims are not Arab.
It's true. Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of vetting going on in these scripts.
I think we just wanted to move past that pretty quickly.
Let's get past the racism, shall we?
oh yeah. Can we talk about the judge? Because I thought she was really awesome.
She was.
So I love this judge because literally when they go in for that first motion to exclude the information about her being Arab background, literally the judge is sitting in her chair looking at both attorneys, rolling her eyes. I thought that was amazing. It's just exasperated sigh of, oh, we have to talk to you two.
It's, I think, the motto of the law side of this, this series is that whenever you have someone on screen other than McCoy and his assistant, everybody else is thinking, again with this shit?
That's how the defense attorney was. Charlotte, I loved her. She was badass attorney. I wanted her to come back in a million episodes and see her come up against McCoy again and again.
She was in a couple other episodes.
She's great. She was awesome. She was not having it.
So let's get to the trial then. On the stand, Elaine says that her husband was with her. That's his alibi. She gets angry.
What did you have for dinner the night of the 12th?
Prime rib.
Did you and your husband have wine for dinner that night?
I can't do this. You killed your own son. Objection. He was not home with me that evening.
And then on redirect, she gets sad, confronted by the rattling off of the names of everybody who cheated on him. And then she says, oh, she lied and he actually was with her. And so the brilliant plan is based on, of course, the woman-to-woman talk, which apparently should never happen again.
Right.
And I'd like to thank Miss Sutherland for reminding me that the bourgeois fantasies about fidelity in marriage are still running rampant in this country.
Excuse me?
You made me realize. It's easier for a jury to believe that a wife would lie to hurt a scoundrel than lie to protect him.
That's perjury.
Prove it.
Women can't be trusted to talk to other women.
Because she picked up on the idea. She says that the jury would not believe that
she didn't care about his affairs.
Well, yeah, that they would believe he would lie. She would lie.
Look how confused you are.
No, she would lie to protect a murderer, but wouldn't lie to protect
a cheater.
A cheat, or the other way around?
I don't know. All I know is that for whatever reason, the memory of their dinner of prime rib and Cabernet was what sent her over the edge. And I was like, why that moment to choose to start lying or not? I don't understand any of it. So was he with her or not with her? This was what was so confusing, right?
He was not with her.
Right. But she was lying when she said he was, and she was double-cross lying when she said he wasn't.
Yeah.
He really wasn't, but she did a shit sandwich, lie, truth, lie, and then said the truth was a lie.
Yeah. To lie and then retract the lie
Dear
would
God.
seem more like the truth.
So privileged.
Than
Only
the lie.
white people would get away with this shit, I'm telling you.
Well, and
Really, she was lying about the lie.
Well, and where is the judge pulling everybody into her office going, guys, come on. Can we just figure this out and get a reliable witness? Somebody?
She's more like, hey, look, we've come this far. There's 5 minutes left in this episode. Why don't we just...
Honey,
let's see what the jury does.
Let's go home and work the crosswords some more, shall we? Why, their marriage sounds fun, huh?
Now, I do want to know, how did Dr. Blanchard think he was going to get away with, of all things, infecting his ex-lover with SARS? I mean, if I had an ex-mistress who was a bricklayer and a brick went through my window, I'm not thinking a long time about who's responsible for that.
Also, why did he try to kill her? Was that ever clear?
Yeah. Oh, it was a paternity thing. If the paternity was proven, then he's probably on the hook for a lot of money, which they never presented as a motivation.
Right.
Well,
Very
and not
confusing.
only that, but he also said that he didn't think it would kill her. He was like, oh, it'll be like flu symptoms. It's really not that big of a deal. She'll be fine.
It's a prank.
So why did he do it?
Right. And infect 11 other people. I mean,
yes. Why did he do it? Like, why?
Because he had to risk his total career to get back at the one woman who says no to him.
Well, he is from Hudson.
He is from Hudson.
No sense.
Skin feeling rougher than sandpaper? Don't let it ruin your day. Try new Dial Exfoliating Body Wash with a touch of creamy cocoa butter, orange extract, and vitamin E. Reveals soft and glowing skin after just one shower. Dermatologist tested in pH balance for a deep yet gentle clean. Dial up your day.
Lemon, lime, and a drop of cherry make a simple Shirley. But what happens when Tito's handmade vodka reveals this sweet sipper's dirty secret? Stir up a Tito's Dirty Sherlock and crack the case with Tito's at Tito'sVodka.com. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
All right, let's take a look at the real-life story that inspired this episode. It's time for Ripped from the Headlines.
You think you know who did it. You think you know who did it. But you don't know who did it. You don't know who did it. Ripped from the headlines.
This episode is inspired by the case of Doctor Richard Schmidt. The Louisiana physician had a decade-long affair with a nurse named Janice Trahan, which ended in 1994. 6 months afterwards, Trahan was diagnosed with HIV. Unsure of how she contracted it, she learned neither her ex-husband or her old boyfriends had the virus. That's when she suspected the doctor, who had given her an injection he said was vitamin B12. Detectives learned the night of the injection, Dr. Schmidt had drawn blood from an AIDS patient, but the vial never made it to the laboratory. Though Schmidt had been their prime suspect, investigators didn't have a way to prove Trahan had been infected with his patient's blood. Scientists conducted a new kind of testing to examine the DNA strands within the virus and compare the two samples. It was the first time a court would consider phylogenetic evidence. Experts declared the virus strands in Trahan and Schmidt's patient were similar. That was good enough for the jury, which convicted the doctor for attempted murder in 1998. Richard Schmidt will be eligible for early release in 2023.
We're going to back up a minute. SARS is back in the news.
Today?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, China has a pneumonia outbreak that is very reminiscent of SARS. They're saying, no, it's something different.
That's comforting.
Of course, they were criticized about what kind of information they gave out about the origins of the outbreak. They say 23 people died. World Health Organization says 8,000 people died around the world.
Wow.
Between 2002 and 2004. Yeah, this is a respiratory illness. It is easy to catch. So let's go back to the real-life case here. This is the second time we've done a rip from the headlines where someone used AIDS-tainted blood as a weapon.
Yeah.
You recall that other Law and Order. So the doctor was giving her B12 injections to keep her from getting colds. It was a regular thing that they did.
Okay. Again, very romantic.
Yeah. B12 promotes red blood cells, not white blood cells, so I don't quite get what that regimen is. But he came over late at night after they broke up and insisted on giving her the injection.
And she said, sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, hey, we just broke up. I don't want to deal with you would not have been appropriate. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't want to victim blame, obviously.
Agreed.
However, I will say it is a red flag. If the doctor that you were dating and spurned or whatever the end of this relationship was, then wanted to come to my house and give me an injection, I'd be like, I'm going to pass.
Are you talking about makeup sex? No, literally injection? Well, I am feeling a bit run down. All right, just swab the little cotton down there.
Maybe it's just an easy way to get him out of the house. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Leave.
Yeah. In the beginning of her diagnosis, they checked with her husband, anybody that she had, or ex-husband, I should say, anybody that she had dated.
Yeah.
And nobody had it, including the doctor.
Yeah.
And so they were at a loss. And then she went, oh, that's right.
Oh, no.
He came in and gave me a needle in the arm. Because she worked in a hospital, it was conceivable she contracted it
Yeah.
accidentally on the job. She also got an injection. In that same injection, there was also blood from a hepatitis C patient.
Wow.
And she contracted that too.
Oh, poor thing.
As of 2016, Janice was still alive, at least according to my exhaustive research on what has happened to her. She was on HLN, Headline News Network. She was saying she was having health problems related to the Hep C part of her illness.
Yeah. This seems like also, I mean, it's a very weird and inefficient way to try to kill somebody in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you would think a doctor, I mean, this is again a situation where like he is in contact with and obviously working with AIDS patients and sending their blood to the lab. A, direct line from her to him, right?
Yeah.
But B, like he knows that, you know, these diseases are symptomatic, asymptomatic for long periods of time sometimes, or like different things can happen. It seems inefficient. It really does. It really just seems more efficient to hit somebody with a frying pan. I'm not condoning that.
The frying pan industry, the frying pan lobby is saying, don't say that, Rebecca.
It's also one thing to do it to her, but what about the other people that could be infected by it? They didn't do anything to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This guy's a monster.
Seems really
And he could get out?
unfair.
He could get out soon?
He technically could.
Oh, he's not gonna.
But, I mean, he could get out for good behavior. He has been up for parole, and he continues to extol his innocence. So the parole board is not going to release him unless he admits to his guilt and is remorseful about that, et cetera, et cetera. But he did, try to appeal the conviction based on the science because it was novel. And what they found, they were able to take partial DNA. I'm going to really kind of confuse like how this works, but you can use RNA to, replicate or fill in holes in DNA strands and whatnot. Yeah, okay.
Listen, I love science. This is just not what this podcast is about.
Yeah,
Get to the point.
So they compared Janice's strain with this from the patient, the dead AIDS patient, and also with a bunch of control samples.
Right.
And the analysis was that the sample between Janice and the patient was closer than all the control samples, but not an exact match or anything like that.
Right.
The jury was okay with that, given the totality of the evidence.
Right.
Good enough for a conviction?
I mean, see, this is the whole thing. And O.J. Simpson's trial kind of set us up for this, where it comes to the DNA and the science and making sure everybody knows the science. I would be so confused sitting on a jury. I would have no idea. But if it's a matter of she consented to the thing and then he just so happened to put something else in it, then to me, I would probably be like, yeah, he's probably guilty of injecting her with something that she didn't really want.
Yeah, it's still hard to explain away the B12 injection.
Right. Yeah, that part's weird. But yeah, I as you know, I am the kind of person who will say, even if someone did it, if the evidence isn't great, like they probably shouldn't be convicted, right? I wasn't in this trial. I don't know what the totality of the evidence was, but I'm assuming there's probably been some advances in this area since then. And I could imagine that this doctor, if he is proclaiming his innocence, is probably talking about this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not working.
It's not working.
He's stuck there.
He's stuck in prison. Yeah. Probably for the best. Let's be real.
Well, that is going to do it for us. I want to thank our guests, Samantha Thompson. Sam, where can our listeners follow you online?
Oh, you can follow me on all the things. We're at Spooky Alec Sam on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook, Spooky Adventures of Alec and Sam.
And Rebecca Lavoie, how can our listeners follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Reb Lavoie.
And you can track me on Twitter at Kevin P. Flynn. You can also tweet to us at Law & Order Pod or follow us on Instagram at These Are Their Stories Podcast. Our newsreader was Cy Frater. Our theme music was composed and performed by Uncanny Valleys. Line editing by Henry Lavoie. Content assistance from the great Travis Roy, who will instantly rebuild our server with all of our episodes in a short notice on Christmas Eve. Lily Flynn handles our promotions. To get ad-free episodes of These Are Their Stories a week early, sign up for Stitcher Premium. Get your first month free at stitcherpremium.com/crime. All clips in this podcast were used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act Fair Use Exemption for criticism and commentary. Special thanks to the elite squad of the Law & Order Wiki community for preserving the evidence. If you want to know what episodes we're talking about in our upcoming shows, go to lawandorderpodcast.com, sign up for our newsletter for a chance to be our next Law & Order Marathon winner. These Are Their Stories was recorded in the Yoga Loft above the Bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio. It is a production of Partners in Crime Media.
Partners in Crime Media.
Lemon, lime, and a drop of cherry make a simple Shirley. But what happens when Tito's handmade vodka reveals this sweet sipper's dirty secret? Stir up a Tito's Dirty Sherlock and crack the case with Tito's at titosvodka.com. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.